This is iOS 26, not 19, Apple's latest and greatest software for their iPhones. I've been testing it for over a month now, and now with the new public beta that launched a few days ago, you can too. And you probably should because, to be honest, I feel like this update is probably one of their safest yet boldest choices in a decade. In a good way. And we should probably expect something like that because they literally changed their naming system to not the next version, but the next year, which is 2026. And yeah, it'll be confusing when we say iOS 26 came after 18, but hey, I guess these are confusing times. And in a time when Apple's been struggling a whole lot, I feel like this is honestly their savior. Because the most obvious thing you will notice right off the bat, even before unlocking your phone, is the new liquid glass design that's inspired by elements and animations from Vision OS. The lock screen icons are a lot more shimmery and shiny, as if reflecting the light, and there's now a dynamic sizing clock that goes with your wallpaper and also reflects the light, which can be customized to be either more or less transparent, or as they would call it, more or less glass-like. You can even finally move your widgets on the lock screen to the top or bottom of the screen. And as explained before, this all makes iOS feel more like iOS because it's already so well known for being smooth and flowy rather than fast and snappy like Android is. Heck, even the notifications are now glassy. And since we're going in chronological order already, let's just keep on rolling. When you unlock your phone, you'll notice the new, more solid-looking glass edge animation, which is especially cool to look at if you're in an app and swipe up, because it truly looks like glass refracting and bending the light of the apps on your phone. But what about after you unlock? Well, in the default and dark version for your home screen, pretty much every single app has gone through that liquid glass treatment. The biggest change in an app icon is the camera app, which in my opinion also went through the biggest change in the app itself as well, in terms of functionality. But I'll get to that later. Along with the new icons reflecting light and all that, you can now change your apps on your home screen to be transparent and refract or bend the light of the wallpaper behind it, which I got to say looks pretty cool to me. Maybe not to you, but to me. You can also now change the transparency of a tinted icon, which is something I just very much love. And now when you enter an app, essentially every single one that's created by Apple went through a change of some type because of the new design philosophy, such as the new, more minimalist and elegant keyboard, or the new buttons and tab bars that float above the bottom of the screen or below the top of the screen. But there were some apps that really did change a whole lot overall, such as the Photos app, which even Apple themselves admitted was a revert back to what users liked before iOS 18 and all that happened. And even though I never really experienced iOS before iOS 18 because I got a phone near the end of 2024, I can admit the new Photos app looks a whole lot more organized and just overall better, as there are now 2 tabs at the bottom. Library, where you can access all of your photos, and Collections, which stores your albums. This is where the safe part comes in. They're actually granting us the wishes we wanted for so long. And then obviously the bold part is clearly this new design philosophy. And there are many other smaller changes in photos, such as a summary of recently saved, or the search bar being at the bottom of the screen, like it is now with every single app. Or even how the 2 library and collection tabs turn into tabs where you can organize by date as you scroll up. But the coolest thing I gotta say has to be the new spatial scenes feature, where just like the Vision Pro, you can view your images in a spatial 3D form after you tap on a button. And how is this, you may ask? It's because objects closer to you appear to move more against the background than objects further away when your perspective changes. Or in sciencey terms, the parallax effect, and Apple utilized this effect to their advantage. You can also do this with the click of a button on the lock screen for your wallpaper, which is honestly really, really sick to see a 3D image on my screen every time I turn it on. And with the iOS 26 Developer Beta 4, we finally got the dynamic wallpaper that can change with the time of day too. Not really related, but just a side note. But what about taking photos to get this cool effect in the first place? Yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the app where this liquid glass thing is most prevalent is definitely the camera app. And this is because pretty much everything, and I'm saying like everything, looks different. From the way you navigate between different modes like photo and video or portrait, where you now can't tap to get to different modes but have to swipe, to the way you can now change different settings in those modes with a swipe up or by tapping the dots in the top right corner, to changing your, say, video recording settings in a more simplified interface, to everything in between. This change overall makes it look a lot more streamlined and simple, or should I say, more Apple-like. The Settings app also got a minor bit of this treatment with the new arrangement and pill-shaped buttons instead of the old circle ones, and the Phone and Messages apps got new tab bars, but the other apps mostly stayed familiar with extremely little tweaks, and a pattern you can notice throughout all of these apps are the little trampoline-like dynamic animations, the way buttons become smaller as you scroll down but enlarge when you scroll up, the buttons that glow and morph when you press on them, the icons in the control center that seem to reflect off light, and the more circular than squircular design choices, along with, of course, more translucent stuff everywhere. But outside of Apple-made first-party apps, the changes are slim, and they look exactly the way they used to. Even the keyboard, which is somewhat disappointing. I would try to hope that at least a huge company like Google would change something, but nope, they didn't. Just barely you can notice it in the app icons. And I just don't know. It would have been nice for just a few things to change, because now this liquid glass thing feels very half-baked, even though maybe they will update their apps to go with this soon. Not even things like undo and redo or other menu things that just pop up or appear as the new design is supposed to look. So yeah, on that front, it is a bit disappointing. But say you don't like the new look of iOS, you're not vibing with this glass thing, and you just want to change it back to how it was before, when you could actually read what's in the control center or your notifications or see your apps clearly instead of seeing the annoying stuff behind. Well, they got an option for you too. To start, in Developer Beta 4, it now dynamically darkens the wallpaper as you scroll down to see notifications so that it is more visible. But instead, you can consider it done for all of the things once you go into the Settings app. Tap on Accessibility, and inside Display and Text Size, you can turn on Reduce Transparency, which reduces transparency. Obviously, pretty self-explanatory. Outside the new design of iOS, there are also many different features within the apps themselves. One of these being in the Phone app, which are call screening and hold assist, two features that are heavily praised on the Pixel phones but haven't come to the iPhone till now. And if you don't know what this is, basically for call screening, a personal agent, or in this case, your phone, takes the call if it detects that it is an unknown number. It asks what the person is calling for and then tells the user, who can then decide to actually answer the call or not, or to reply to them through text after looking at the real-time transcription of the conversation. Of course, you can decide to use this feature or not by turning it on or off in the Settings app by going into Apps, tapping on the Phone app, and toggling it on or off. And then Hold Assist, on the other hand, helps manage calls when you're placed on hold. And yeah, before I say what it does, it also requires Apple Intelligence, unfortunately. Basically, when you're on a call and get put on hold, your iPhone's phone app detects the hold music or automated prompts. And then you can tap on the Hold Assist button, or you can tap on the three dots and turn on Hold Assist. And Hold Assist takes over the waiting, keeping your place in line while you can use your phone for other things, or even put it away. Finally, when a live agent becomes available, your iPhone will notify you and you can return to the call. It seems overall pretty cool and pretty useful, but I don't know about you guys because I've never really been put on hold before. I don't really have any demos because, one, I don't have Apple Intelligence on my phone. Yes, again, it requires Apple Intelligence. And two, I don't get put on hold a lot, as I mentioned earlier. In the second beta for developers, we also got a new Reflection Alt 1 ringtone, which sounds pretty cool. How about you have a listen? In Messages, we add on to the save part. We finally got what we wanted for ages. Polls, where you can give a few options and let someone or people in your chat choose, and backgrounds for different chats where you can use something from your photo album or the animated presets they have. Two things that have been in other messaging apps for a really long time, but that we haven't seen in iOS's default messaging app. So they're both welcome changes. Just remember that when you change the background for one of your chats, it's gonna show up as the same chat background for the other side or sides, okay? We also got filtering by spam and recently deleted messages, which is another welcome change. And I don't really have any good examples for these as I don't get much spam, but along with this, we now also have group chat typing indicators, which I don't know how many of you actually care about this, but I feel like it should have been the obvious thing from the start. It's little, it's subtle, but it's nice. Next up, we got a few new apps. So enter the Games app and the Preview app. The Games app is an app where you can play games with your friends and manage your Apple Games profile, which I don't really play many games, especially with friends, but I guess you can count me in for a few rounds of Wordle against my devious younger brother or a game of charades with my friends. It does feel a little pointless because I feel like it'd be nice for this to be built into the game section on the App Store, which is already slightly similar, but I guess you could say it presents very slightly more functionality than just that section of the App Store. There's also a Preview app where you can see previews. Line? So, as I was saying, you can see previews of screenshots from your Mac, which shouldn't this have been built into the Files app or maybe the Photos app? Like, if you see it on your Mac with Finder, why shouldn't you be able to see it on your iPhone with Files? Just, one could differ and make it more difficult for us, I guess. There are also some new functionalities built into Apple Maps, which, I don't really drive or go many places by myself that much, and I always try to use my watch when I'm trying to get somewhere on my own, since my watch has cellular and my phone doesn't. But I'll just spit out some features they advertised. To start, Maps can now memorize your ideal route instead of taking you straight to your final destination on the fastest route. Like, say, for example, if you go to Starbucks for some coffee every day before work, it can now memorize that route and take you straight to Starbucks before taking you to work instead of needing to go on Maps twice, because just who wants to do that? And similarly, Maps can also remember places you visited and put them as suggestions automatically instead of needing to go to that destination itself on Maps, if you get what that means. It's just another nifty 2-second time saver. And then now I'll pack in some Apple Intelligence features, even though they still haven't finished rolling out Siri 2.0. Okay, calm down, Alex. You said that in every single video. Even though I don't really have Apple Intelligence on my iPhone 12 Pro Max, I'll just tell you about these features. And a lot of these I've already mentioned earlier, such as Hold Assist, but I'll get into some of the other ones I haven't mentioned yet. One of these is the new Gemoji, where you can use existing emojis to create new emojis by combining another emoji with it in something called Mixmoji. And it reminds me a lot of Google's Emoji Kitchen, where you can also combine two emojis together. There are also new ChatGPT styles in Image Playground, which I did ask for more styles in Image Playground, but this kind of feels like cheating because just like accessing ChatGPT through writing tools or the new Siri 2.0, it really isn't Siri doing the heavy lifting. There is also the ability to translate, which encompasses something else that's safe and that we've been asking from Apple for a long time. You can use live translation in the phone app by tapping on the 3 dots that are labeled More and turning it on, FaceTime in a similar way, Messages by going to Info and turning it on, and even Apple Music to translate the lyrics of the song you're listening to. You can choose the language you want to translate to and the language you want to translate from, and it seems like it works overall pretty well. Visual intelligence. One of my favorite Apple Intelligence features also got an upgrade that is again something that I feel like should have been an obvious choice from the start. The ability to search anything that's on your screen, not just from your camera feed, just like Android Circle to Search has been able to do for a few years now. You can just take a screenshot and press a button to either ask ChatGPT, reverse image search it with Google, or do something that can link to other Apple apps, such as if you take a screenshot of an event, you can add it to your calendar automatically, which is actually something Circle to Search can't do yet, so bonus points for that. Some other Apple Intelligence features are actually in Reminders, where it can give you suggestions for reminders based on your texts and messages. So if someone tells you to buy groceries and gives you a list, it will probably suggest the list that you were given. It will also automatically categorize your reminders based on how related they are, which seems pretty nifty. And then the last feature I want to mention in Apple Intelligence is something new called Adaptive Power in the Settings app, where you can turn it on and it'll prioritize its power consumption for certain things to lengthen the battery life. It seems like it works fine, but it really does feel like Apple is putting this in Apple Intelligence just to make us upgrade. Not because of a RAM thing or a chip thing, just purely so that it'll make us upgrade. Classic Apple. Oh yeah, and one last thing, one random thing. It's that in Beta 4, Apple enabled the ability to summarize notifications for entertainment and news, because earlier it was actually disabled due to the fact that it was summarizing things into, like, say, Luigi Mangione shoots himself or Taylor Swift arrested. Yeah, a little rough. And now let's depart from the Apple Intelligence feature, because they always try to remind you that you don't have the latest iPhone, and go to just some random little new features sprinkled out and about some apps or settings. And since we were already on the topic of battery, how about we go to a new feature where you can see how long it'll take you to recharge your phone. Because now, as soon as you plug in your phone, you can see at the very top of the lock screen the time it will take to charge to either 80 or 100% battery, which is honestly so cool. And now, every time you turn your phone on, you can now see how long it will take to charge. You can also go into the Settings app and see this in the battery section, which is another nice little thing. It's something we weren't really asking for, but very much appreciate, so I'll call it another safe play. We also got a couple of sprinkles in Apple Music, such as the Apple Intelligence Translate Lyrics feature mentioned earlier, but also a different feature where you can see just the sounds and how to pronounce the lyrics if you want to jam more with the music. And for the record, I don't use Apple Music. I'm definitely more of a YouTube Music or Spotify kind of guy, so I didn't really test these features out, but I'm sure some of them might be of slight use. There's also something really cool called Auto Mix, which is like a personal DJ switching between two songs. And from what I've heard from others, it is really good at mixing and merging the two songs together before going to the latter one. You can turn it on and off in settings by going into apps, tapping on music, going into song transitions, turning song transitions on, and changing it from crossfade to auto mix. Whew, that was a mouthful. And sorry, we weren't done with the lock screen earlier, because when you see the album art during the time when you're playing music on Apple Music and enlarge it by tapping on it, it now moves like a video would, which seems like a little touch, but I think I like it. You do have to turn it on in settings though, like you have to do with Automix, by going into apps, clicking on music, and turning on animated art, which should be at the very bottom. And apparently I have memory loss because I forgot about a camera feature earlier too. And I highly recommend this one because again, it's such a simple thing, but it's useful at times. And these are lens cleaning hints, which hint at you when you should clean your camera lenses. Obviously. Self-explanatory as many other things in this video are, but it's nice because many times I think it's not the problem of the camera you're taking the photo with, and actually simple things like cleaning your lenses. And to turn this on, go into settings, camera, and toggle on lens cleaning hints at the very bottom of the page. There was something genuinely frustrating about these though, because I couldn't find the setting at all on my iPhone 12 Pro Max. And after quickly Googling why, I found out it's only compatible with iPhone 15 Pro and later. Because of course they have to. It's Apple. Good old Apple. But this is honestly such a simple feature that had no correlation with Apple Intelligence whatsoever in the keynote. And out of all the positives they had with this launches, this is a big negative because it's not just about the feature. It shows what type of company Apple is. And I'm sure even something like the iPhone 7 wouldn't have a problem handling this feature, which is not what Apple wants you to believe. The alarm interface has also changed now, so whenever you get an alarm, the buttons to snooze and stop that alarm are much larger. And I overall think this is another one of those things that should have been obvious choices from the start, as this interface does look a lot better and more simplified than the old one. Oh yeah, and on the topic of alarms, you can now also change the snooze duration anywhere in between 1 and 15 minutes when setting it up, which is another, I feel like it should have been obvious change, but I like it because this is the part where Apple plays it safe, and it's a lot better than when we could only have a 9-minute snooze duration. We're actually firing through these pretty quickly because next up are some accessibility features, 2 to be exact. And the first one is an addition to something from iOS 18, vehicle motion cues. You can now change the color, size, and style of them, and you can choose between regular and dynamic. I think dynamic is quite a bit better than regular because it just looks overall more pleasing than regular. That was something that added on to an iOS 18 feature, but the next thing is completely new. Head gestures, which, as all things are named from Apple, pretty self-explanatory. And you can program a bunch of gestures you make with your head to do certain actions, such as raising your eyebrows to open the camera or opening your mouth to go home. Even though it works really well, I do feel like you could accidentally use many of these features, which I know you can adjust the sensitivity, and I know it's for those with disabilities, but I'm just saying. I do feel like this does have the potential to be really cool though, especially if you enable voice control and eye tracking as well as this. And last but most certainly not least, we've got the new AirPods features, which I won't get into too much because they are again pretty self-explanatory. The ability to finally be able to record high-res audio from AirPods into voice memos, and the really cool new ability to use your AirPod stems as camera remotes when they're in your ears, which I think will make for many different use cases and be pretty nice to have. Overall though, as mentioned before and as you can probably see, the biggest change is still this whole liquid glass thing, and it's pretty controversial despite what I said in my impression video. In iOS 26 Developer Beta 3, they removed and tweaked a lot of the liquid glass stuff to please those that didn't like the readability issues that came with it. But the recent release of Beta 4 changed that all back, and we're back on track to how it was in the first few betas. And I'm glad they did this because this entire design is the bold part of my statement, and I honestly really like it. For once, Apple is finally doing something different, something new. And I'm not against it, even though many different people are. But like iOS 7, their last huge iOS design revamp, it's gonna take a while for everyone to accept different. When they showed off this thing, everyone was complaining about the readability issues, and then came Beta 3, which solved those problems, but now everyone else was complaining about how there was nothing special about it anymore. And now we're back at it with Beta 4. Really shows there's always something for someone to complain about. You can't please everyone, and I think Apple pretty much has that figured out. It's up to you guys to decide if you're pleased or not with this controversial and big software update. I haven't been pleased by the recent Vision Pro sales and Apple Intelligence debacle, that's for sure. But Apple, for once, with this new iOS 26 and liquid glass thing that you've been doing, you certainly pleased me. Alex, I'll explain, signing out.